Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live Education Edition. I'm Wezi Tindwa, an Adobe Education Evangelist, and my background is in teaching and learning. I have a strong passion for creative expression and particularly using creative skills to demonstrate our thinking. So I am particularly excited for today's Adobe Live. The cherry on top is that our special guest today is Matt Carlson, who is the Director of User Experience for Education, Fonts and Drawing and Painting at Adobe, and has the awesome side hustle of being a game designer and children's book illustrator. Welcome, Matt.
Hey everybody, how are you?
So, Matt, you'll be guiding us through drawing activities using Adobe Express for Education and just bringing animations to life. But before we get started, could you please tell us a little bit about your background and the journey that connected your passion to your profession?
Absolutely. So I'm the director of UX design for Fresco, which is our drawing and painting app, drawing and painting in Express, fonts and education at Adobe. And I've been here at Adobe for about 7.5 years, working on a range of different products. My journey before this was I worked in design at both Twitter and Facebook. But before that, I've worked at a really broad range of agencies, studios, product design firms, all sorts of kind of graphic design and design-oriented companies. And the one thing that's been a constant through almost all of my jobs has been drawing. So whatever I was designing, whatever products or whatever I was working on, drawing, either sketching my notebook or doing illustrations has been a constant.
Well, I'm really excited that we get to connect with you and just tap into that depth of experience that you have. And so, in the next 50 minutes or so, Matt is going to walk us through showing us how to transform your imagination using drawing tools in Adobe Express and telling visual stories through animations. And these are tools and skills that can help us think more deeply about the content that we're learning and then get to show and tell our learning in really captivating and creative ways. And the best part is that Adobe Express for Education is free for K-12 educators and students. So whether you're looking to add those visuals to existing activities or create them to express new learning, you have lots of options in Express. And so, Matt, for those that are new to Adobe Express, what else might you add to that description that I just gave there?
I think Express is the best app that Adobe has for bringing things together from a lot of different places. So if you wanted to create a presentation, you wanted to tell a story, you wanted to make a video, Adobe does the best job of kind of bringing everything together and letting you do some pretty creative things with it. So today I'll be exploring both how you can not only create drawings, but bring drawings into a presentation, do some fun animations around it, and I'll explore that even more as we begin to talk.
And the best part, or one of the best parts, is that you don't need the background experience or a professional experience in order to create really impactful designs and have a high level design experience within Express. So we're going to jump into our drawing tool. And so, Matt, what is a good starting point for us once we get into Express Draw?
Well, I'll walk through that. And what I thought really quickly was is I could just go through a couple things showing some of the things you can draw within Adobe's products and then dive
Perfect.
into the drawing editor itself. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Okay. So one moment, I'm going to share and we're going to see some interesting things. So today in the draw along, we're going to have kind of an outer space theme, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. We're going to look at some drawing tools and how you can bring it back into the main Express experience and begin to animate those. Really quickly, just for fun, here's a self-portrait drawn in both Fresco and Adobe Express, cartoon version of myself. As I
Oh,
mentioned,
cool.
and these are some animations that I did in Fresco, but I'm also going to show you how to do animations in Express today. These are my teams, Education, Fresco, and Fonts. Here's some of the things that I love to draw. I love to draw fantasy stuff and lots of robots. I draw games for kids, and all of this is done in Express and Fresco. And just this last year, I did my first children's book. It's all about rocks and how they're formed.
Look at that.
There's a quick peek at the cover. It's all about rocks and their backstories. And this is Pebble, the rock reporter from the Geologic Times. And she goes all around the world exploring rocks and finding out kind of how they're formed, getting all their backstories. And one thing that's pretty central to my process is I love doing digital sketches, whether I'm doing it in Express or doing it in Fresco. Part of the whole process of creating a book is coming up with sketches and explaining your ideas, talking about those with the writer, talking about those with the designer. So here are some examples of really rough, kind of fun sketches that I did for the book that I just created. And here's what it looks like when it's a final illustration. And so I use a lot of Adobe's products, mostly Fresco and Photoshop and Express. I use Fresco and Photoshop for finished illustrations. I use Express to put together the types of presentations when I'm just communicating ideas to the writer or to the publisher. I use Express to pull everything together and make presentations that I can use to share with all the people so we can talk about what should go into the book, what shouldn't go into the book, are these illustrations working, etc. So those are some examples of some of the illustration work that I've done. And then really quickly,
I think I might have lost your audio for a second there, Matt.
and that's okay. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay. The music was just a little bit loud, but those are some examples of animations that once again, you can do really easy animations in Express or in Fresco. And here's an example of what we're going to do today. So I hope everyone can see this. This is just and it's just taking all these parts and pieces that have all been drawn in Express and bringing them together into a bigger composition and beginning to animate them. So that's what we're going to do today as we get into the work itself. Sound
I
good?
am really excited to explore these possibilities, especially as what you're showing us is a multimedia project, just starting small from the small illustration and developing out. And just before we get into how we can do that, I see that we are joined by folks from all over. So if you could let us know in the chat where you are joining us from today, we would love to give you a shout out. I see you, Michael Clear, and Tim Cosgrove in Canada. See you, Cody Bear. Thank you for joining us. And we've got some Adobe team members as well. Shell and Ann Cosma are in our virtual space with us. And so thank you all for joining. Let us know in the chat where you are logging in from. And if you have any questions, as Matt takes us through how we can really express that creativity and use draw to bring our imagination to life, let us know in the chat and we'll do our best to respond during the stream. So back to you, Matt. And I do have a question as
Yeah.
you are getting into this, because especially just having the opportunity to talk to, for us to connect with you and tap into your experience. Um, I'm curious, how is drawing digitally different or even freeing compared to drawing with pencil and paper?
So I'll tell you, being able to draw digitally really opened up art and illustration for me. And I'll tell you, the first big thing is you can undo. Like you can go backward. I feel for me, drawing
Undo.
digitally is incredibly freeing because I feel like I can make more mistakes. And that's a crucial thing about learning how to be an illustrator. I make mistakes all the time. I'm learning how to like be a better illustrator every day. And the way you do that is by making experiments and making mistakes. And beginning to draw in something like Express is you have that power of beginning to experiment. I'm going to show you guys a lot of different brushes today. I'm going to show you a lot of different techniques. I think I find it, as much as I love drawing on paper and sketching my notebooks, I think I love just the freedom of being able to explore different brushes, explore different colors, and just and do so much without ever having to worry about making a mistake.
I love that. So the mistakes in a way are just part of the process. They are, we can say that they are part of the creative process, that they can actually help you develop your ideas even further, which is a liberating sense to have, especially as you're being creative. I know a lot of us can get become quite a stickler in that process, but really understanding it as part and parcel to the larger picture, I think, is an important and meaningful aspect of our growth in the way that we
Yeah,
visually express
absolutely.
ourselves. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Quick shout out to Paloma from DC. I see you in the chat. Keep letting us know, those of you who are joining us, where you're joining us from, and also any questions that you have for Matt.
And as we do that, so Wezi, I'm going to jump right in, and I'll just show
Yeah.
everyone the place that you find drawing. It's right off of the Express homepage, and you just click on this button in the lower left in that row of different ways to start. Click on Drawing, and that will bring you right into the drawing editor. So here we are in the drawing editor, and the first thing I'm going to do is kind of walk you through some of the basics of it, where the tools are, what we have access to in the drawing editor, and how to use them. And I'm going to start with everyone's favorite thing, brushes. So here's a really wonderful thing
Love the
about,
brushes.
yes, all the brushes that we have in Express Draw are the same brushes that we have in Fresco, the same brushes that we have in Photoshop. We kind of like, we cherry picked some of our favorite brushes and brought them in here first. One thing I love to do whenever I'm like, trying out any app is, and a very kind of calming activity for me, is just trying out brushes and seeing what they do. This is the most simple brush. It is like a basic round brush, and it's just like a big, solid dot. Here's the thing that you can do with all the brushes. You can make them big. And one thing that's really fun is to take a brush and turn it into a plain circle. We're going to use that to make planets later. So a lot of these brushes act as stamps as well as brushes really quickly. But that's the round brush. Other basic brushes is we have this kind of like fuzzy effect, a little bit kind of like a spray can. We have dotted lines, dashed lines, if you need to make a treasure map. One of my favorites is this wobbly line that looks kind of like a slightly leaky ballpoint pen. I love
Nice.
drawing with that one. And then we have effects like a halftone circle if you want to do some comic books and some feelings like that. Other basic brushes are square, triangle, and once again, you can use these shapes and you can use them as stamps. Make a big triangle, do it in a different color. They work as both brushes and as stamps. And so here's the brushes. I'm going to take an even deeper dive into brushes in a moment. Right now, we're just going to go through some of the basics. Next tool down is called Eraser. And you can guess what an eraser does. It erases. But unlike other erasers, we have different textures for erasers. Like we have an eraser that feels more kind of like once again, like spray paint or a spray can. There's a zigzag eraser. Some of the erasers have different effects. There's one that has a slightly rough edge. You can see that there. So that's the erase tool. And there's also this little button in the upper right-hand corner called Erase All. So when I want to clear the canvas, I use that. The next tool down is called Fill. And basically, its icon is a little paint bucket. And I'll show you what that does in a moment. So I'll get the hard round. I'm going to change it to like a smaller size. You can probably guess what fill does. Fill just fills something with another color. So here I'm taking this magenta color, and fill just fills out that space. If I tap fill on top of a line, it'll turn the line that color too. So that's that little paint bucket. We try to keep the tools really simple, but those are some fun ones, the main ones that you want to use. So that is the brushes, that's eraser, that's fill. And now I'm going to show you how to pick a color. The other basic thing when I'm using a brush tool, and I'm going to go to one of my favorite brushes.
We had somebody in the chat say, it was Mr. Dito say that what you just put together there as you were testing those brushes would make a nice album cover. I agree.
Just you wait. And I hope that some people are kind of
Oh,
drawing along with me because I think we'll do some things that'll feel like an even better album cover.
yeah.
And now I'm just going to move to a couple more things. I told you how to move the size of a brush. You pull this slider up and down. The next thing is you can pick the color that you want to paint with. And these are the colors that it shows right off the bat, which I like them. They're all pretty primary. There's another way to pick colors. You click on these two little dots and that'll open up way more colors, basically all the different colors that you might want, a really full palette. And so you
Nice.
can pick a color from there. So that's brushes, that's colors. Here's the reason this is one of my favorite brushes that really feels like a paint stroke. So it's able to make things feel kind of like that, have that real painterly, like as if I was using acrylic paint on a big kind of rough canvas. And I love that sort of, I love the lines that have a little bit more of the rough edge, but that's just me. And there's just a couple more tools that I'm going to walk through, and some of them are really fun. The first one, it's up on this top bar, and it's called Symmetry. We just launched this about a year ago. And what it does is lets you do kind of symmetrical paintings. So when you click that, it shows the axis for the symmetry. And then if you wanted to draw something like butterfly wings, it lets you create these symmetrical compositions. My butterfly is a little chunky, but okay, there we go. Yeah, and it basically will draw on an axis. Change the color, give it some eyes. A little bit of a spooky butterfly. I'm sorry, everyone. It's not Halloween.
I
Yeah,
think that appeals to a lot of folks, a spooky butterfly.
but then it's really fun drawing with symmetry. And so
Yeah, look at
that was
that.
kind of bilateral symmetry where it's doing everything off that central axis. But you can also, we have all these different forms, and one really fun one is doing like a flower. So now the symmetry
Wow.
is really kind of like geometric across that broader axis, and you can go in there and do some really fun designs.
And have really in-depth thinking about, what objects you want to make symmetrical and how you can show that with just using this tool. We have a question in the
Yeah.
chat from Robert. Robert is asking, can you export from Fresco to Express?
When you, yes, absolutely. And also, one really wonderful thing about Adobe is when you draw in Fresco, that Fresco basically works off a Photoshop file. And that Photoshop file shows up in Express and it shows up in Photoshop. So one nice thing is when you're working across these different tools, like often I'll do a drawing in Fresco and bring it directly into Express, drop it into a presentation. Or that same, or I could be working on a Photoshop file in Photoshop, and that image that I'm working on in Photoshop will show up in both Fresco and Express. So all these things, since they're so closely related, will show up in the different places, which makes it really easy to kind of work across all three.
Fantastic. Robert, I hope you got your answer there. And so, Matt, I'm just really appreciating seeing the simplicity with which you are creating really beautiful designs. I know that sometimes that is an initial barrier, is when we think that our ideas are too complex to put down. And so, what other tools would you recommend that we go in and we play with and we practice and explore?
I mean, I would recommend playing with all the brushes. Luckily, like one thing we did is we tried to keep the tools super simple because we, didn't want, it's not, Photoshop is really a power tool. It's incredibly like rich with
Hmm.
all the different things you can do. The editing tools that we have in here, the drawing tools in here, are really focused on having fun, on making it simple and easy to draw and create. So that's why I kind of like there's such a simple range here. A couple other things I'm going to show you, and then we can move on. But you can also either change the background color for your drawing towards all those different colors that you saw below, and you can experiment to see like, okay, what's the perfect backdrop to my picture? And you can also, and we'll do this more later, you can also have it have no background so that you can create a drawing with just a transparent background. And then when you bring that into a composition, whether you're doing an Express presentation or Express poster, it won't have any background, so that item can really float. You can do whatever you want with it.
Fantastic. So, a quick recap to the features that you just walked us through. Just getting into Express, finding that draw icon from the home dashboard. If you're in your Adobe for Education account, it is that just underneath that digital playground at the top of the screen there. You've play with the brushes, see what's there, the colors, the eraser, the background, using the symmetry to design. And I think that's a great transition, Matt, into the compositions as you were just alluding to there as we're going through some using those tools in a really simplistic way. And now we can actually create and start to build on those
Okay.
designs.
All right, and although we were going to have like an outer space theme today, really quickly, I'm going to start us on Earth, drawing kind of a really simple scene using some of these brushes. So what I'd like for everyone to do, if you were drawing along, is just grab, first I'm going to use the paint bucket, and I'm going to fill in, I'm going to do a little garden scene. Here's what I'm going to do first. I'm just going to give it a big solid blue background. Boom. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint that sky. So this is going to be the sky. This is going to be the background of our little garden scene. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a brush that will make it kind of a nice, it's called watercolor. Let's see, there we go, watercolor. I'm going to select a watercolor brush and I'm going to change it to white. And I'm going to make the brush size really big as it can go. And then I'm going to just like lightly kind of paint across this with this watercolor, creating a little bit of a cloudy sky. And just take a little bit of time, have fun with this, just like covering the whole thing. Part of painting is just actually, it's just like relaxing and having fun and making this a soothing thing. I want my sky to be a little bit blue still, so I'm going back in, painting it over with watercolor. Part of what I love doing is just creating really nice textures and nice
Mm.
depth to things. I think I want to have like a slightly lighter blue, so I'm just going in here. I'm actually picking a custom color here. You have a custom color picker similar to Photoshop where you can do absolutely anything you want. Okay, I think that's enough time on this guy. It looks pretty good.
That looks so cool. Yeah.
I'm gonna go and grab one other brush. We have some brushes that are for special effects, and these let you do really interesting things like I'm gonna pick a brush for grass. I'm going to make this brush adjust the size of it a little bit, and I'm going to start with a light color. Let's see. Go to the swatches, more colors, and the first color, grass color, I'm going to do is in the background, and I'm going to set it to really nice. This is a grass brush, and check that out. I
Look
mean,
at that.
automatically, just right off the bat, it makes these slightly different
Like
grass
the
colors.
details in it. You can see the textures in that brush.
It's really fun. And so this is one of
Yeah.
our more kind of texture-based brushes. Now I'm going to go towards a color that's just a little bit darker. I'm going to do another layer of grass across it. Now I'm going to make the brush the biggest size and pick a color that's even just a little bit darker. And this is the front. So I've created this nice grassy field, and the next thing I'm going to do
Wow.
is draw a flower in it. I think, I'm not going to do a whole garden. Let's just do one flower today, and maybe I'll do a little bee. I'm going to flip on Symmetry just because it's a really fun thing to play with. I'm going
Hmm.
to go back to a different brush. Here I'm going to go to one of my favorites. It's called the Dirty Brush because it has a kind of like a rough brush stroke to it. And I'm going to just turn Symmetry on, and I have just bilateral symmetry here. I'm going to paint a quick flower.
Oh, that looks so good. We have the
And
tools. We just need the imagination, right?
yeah, I mean, and the imagination and just like experimenting.
Hmm.
So we'll just do one flower right now. And part of the fun of this is just like, yes, I could use the paint bucket, but it's also just kind of soothing to like paint stuff in. I'm gonna pinch and zoom to just go way in on this flower. By the way, there's another little thing over here. This is the view, and it can always zoom your canvas back to fit in the page. I'm gonna turn the symmetry off for a moment and just I'll touch up that flower a little bit. I'm gonna give it a nice inside where I'm gonna pick a slightly lighter tone, and we'll just add just some effects. Make the petals have a little bit more interest to them. Once again, I'm just kind of scribbling here, doing it for fun, just kind of seeing where the paint takes me a little bit. And let's give it a really dark center. And now I'm gonna do a nice stem for the flower. So I went with a dark green. Carry that down. So doing the background was just like a big swash of light blue, and I used a watercolor brush to create kind of a little bit of the cloud effect on it. And now I'm sort of painting on top of that with just a nice sort of rough painterly brush that feels like kind of like an old acrylic brush. And then I can see like there's a little bit of a mistake there. My stem kind of overlaps the flower a bit. The nice thing about painting, just paint over it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's like the easiest thing there. I think I want to actually pull my leaves. I could have used a little bit more kind of tweaking. So I'm going to pick one of these colors from beneath using a little eyedropper that's hidden in the paint tool there and just paint them just a little bit more. I'm gonna eyedrop one more time, grab a slightly darker color. And this is just like me kind of tweaking until the composition feels right. You can tell like this is messy. It's not like a perfect drawing, but it really feels expressive.
Hmm.
It really feels like it's kind of capturing a little bit of that energy. And I used a mix of brushes that are, some of the brushes that can simulate things like grass or can simulate watercolor, but already you have a little bit of a drawing. So that's just like a real basic kind of garden drawing that I'm going to do in Express. And that's the last thing we're going to do on Earth because now we're going to jump over to our main event, which is like a little bit more of a space theme.
Love
Okay?
it. Getting into the main event. And I will say you used one of my favorite tools there was just that eyedropper tool. Just being able to pick up any color on the page. I love that. So
Yeah.
yes, I am. Let's take us out of this world.
Okay.
Ready to go.
So we're just going to draw a couple of things. The first thing we're going to draw here is we're going to draw a few planets. Once again, our goal is to create an animation like I shared with you earlier. We're going to draw some planets. We're going to take those things and we're going to use them basically as characters for an animated, for kind of this outer space animation. When I'm doing a planet, the first thing I do is get that hard round brush and pump it up to its biggest size. Another thing I'm going to do is take the background color and turn it off. So for background color, there's that red line, you turn the background off.
Mhm.
You can see
Okay.
that now I've got this totally transparent image. Now I'm going to press that big circle once. I think we'll start with a green planet. And now I'm going to paint on top of it. Maybe this will be something a little bit Earth-like. So I pick another color. And actually, let's see. I'm going to go to a brush. Let's go with that watercolor brush first. Boom. And I'm going to tweak my green a little bit so it has a nice sort of, create some nice contrast on there. Almost looks like it has a little bit of atmosphere. I'm just going to okay, just brush over it. And it's okay if it's like here, it looks like there's a little bit of, like it maybe has some nice clouds or something like that, a little bit of atmosphere. I'm going to zip it back in a little and go kind of more right in the planet. All right. Now I'm going to switch to a different type of brush. I think I'll go to wet paint and I'll start maybe pick a different color. Um, and I'll start kind of drawing across it. And drawing planets can be just really abstract, really fun. Once again, I start with
Yeah.
a big circle and I start just painting some interesting colors across it. I think I want to have like a slightly deeper blue here, so I'm going to go for something a little bit darker. I'm using the color picker and the custom color picker to just like add a little bit more interest. Okay, here's our first planet. A greenish, bluish, kind of rivery type of planet. And now when I click out of here, when I go back to, I'm going to tap on the Express A, and that image will be saved. Everything gets saved into your stuff. Every drawing you make is saved into your stuff, so it's really easy to draw on it. And now let's do another one. Our first planet was blue-green. I think this time, let's start with brush. I'm going to once again take the brush all the way up to the biggest size. And I think this planet should feel pretty warm. I'm going to go with an orange planet. And once again, I'm going to set my background color to transparent. And this time, I think I want to draw a ring around this planet. So I'm going to pick another color. And before I put the ring really quickly, I will give it a little bit more texture too. Let's see. Another, some of the brushes that are really my favorite are the more chalky brushes. So I'll go with a chalky brush. And I think I'll just kind of paint some
Ah.
big blobs onto this one. Maybe these are deserts, who knows? I'm gonna pick another color. I'm gonna keep kind of orange on this one and orange and warm tones, but I wanna have like a darker. Maybe this is Dune, the desert planet,
The
who knows?
dune, the
It looks a
desert
little bit that
planet.
way. And now I'm gonna draw a big ring that will go all the way around it. So I'm gonna pick, once again, go to sort of my favorite brush. I think I'm gonna go with that dirty brush once again, and
The
just
edges.
draw a big ring around it. Oop. Oh, I forgot to share something with everyone. There's a special way to draw in Express Draw. If you draw a circle
Hmm.
and if you hold it, it will turn into a perfect shape.
I was gonna ask you how you are able to have
So
that
the,
stability
okay,
with it. So
some of these
yeah.
I'm just drawing them pretty well because I'm used to drawing circles. But if I create, like, watch this. If I make a really blobby one
Uh-huh.
and I hold it, it will turn into a perfect circle.
Oh.
In the
So
same
it will
way,
reshape it for you.
yeah. So if you don't know how to draw a straight line,
Hmm.
which I don't, it will straighten your line for you.
Look at that. How cool is
So
that?
that's a nice little trick that if you want to draw a really straight line in Express, you just draw a line and hold it. Okay? You just draw a line and hold it
Just
and it
draw and
straightens it out.
hold.
Draw and hold. Just don't lift up and then it'll give you this perfectly straight line that you can do whatever you want with. Not that your lines need to be straight, but if you want to have a straight line, that's the way to do it. And the same thing works for circles, squares, and straight lines. So that's a nice little trick.
How
Basically,
neat.
anytime you want to do something with a straight edge, that's the way to do it. But I think this planet's done. Time to make one more. So I'm going to click on the A again. It's going to save my file automatically. And let's do, you know what? I've done a couple planets. I'm actually going to walk everyone how to draw a really quick robot, and then we're going to move into the other composition and begin animating those. So I'm going to do one more drawing.
Oh, and we had a shell call out. The quote I'm just scribbling here is we can equate that to I am creating without fear. So it's great to just go in there and be fearless and bold and, adding those textures and layers and playing around. I was working with a group of students recently and I said that's my process is play, practice,
That's
and
right.
then produce something. So you just learn so much in that exploration phase.
100%. And you have to play all the time. You have to make mistakes all the time. You have to
Mhm.
sketch all the time. And then the stuff that you really start liking or loving comes out of that. So once again, I'm going to change the background to blank. I'm going to get my brush tool and we're going to do just a really simple robot. And I'm going to start with, once again, I do have my favorite brush. I'm going to start with good old dirty brush because I like that kind of rough painterly feel. And I'm going to pick, I think I'll start with orange. And first I'm going to draw a square. And watch, I think I'll make that snap to shape so that my square is pretty straight edged. That's pretty fun. You can decide how big or how small you want it. And now I'm going to fill it in. Actually, maybe I'll use fill to fill it in really quickly. Oops, I want to have it just be solid orange. I still see some gaps around it, so I'm just going over with the brush and just cleaning up just a little bit. All right, now there's the body of my robot. Now it's time to do the head of the robot. So I'm going to go and select a different color. I think I'm going to go more yellow this time. Okay, now I'm going to draw a big circle. And I use that snap to shape again to make my circle a little bit more symmetrical. Um, okay, there we go. And it's okay if it's a little bit diagonal, that's fine. I'm going to fill this in quickly. I could brush it in, but this time I'm just gonna use the fill to do that big fill. Oops. Meant to use the eyedropper. Gonna get the yellow. Here we go. Boom. There's the robot head. And now just a couple more things. I'm gonna give the robot. Anyone want to pick any colors for me? That's great. I think I'm gonna give him purple legs.
Oh, what other colors do you all want to see? Drop them in the chat. Purple is my favorite, so I would have gone with that as well.
I love purple, I love orange, and those are probably two of my favorite colors. And also we can do some special requests later. There's one arm. Let's give our robot, maybe this arm is, I don't know, a blender.
A blended harm.
And now I'm going to go to one of my other favorite. Maybe this one is, let's see, eraser. Okay, perfect. Now let's give the robot a little bit of personality, a little bit of face. So I'm going to go to the wobbly line, and now I'm going to start drawing some just good robot stuff on this. Robots have a lot of panels,
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of lines, they got a lot of joints. And so I'm going in there and just creating some kind of like fun drawing on top of the robot to give it a little bit more character. Maybe there's robot number 5. I don't know why. Let's assume it's a happy robot. because it gets to go explore outer space.
It is very excited to be
It is
out in outer
excited to be in
space.
space. And probably, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a solar panel here so that it can recharge. Is this robot looking good enough for everyone?
This robot is looking amazing, and I'm actually just thinking about, when I immediately think of drawing a robot, I don't necessarily think of combining those round shapes with the harder shapes. My mind always goes to the harder shapes, but I like how dynamic it's looking. Just by having just putting together the variety of the shapes and the colors with this robot. Like literally bringing it to life.
Yeah. I think robots should be friendly. I think
Yeah,
robots should look
we
like things
shouldn't
that we
fear the
want to interact with.
robots.
So there's a good outer space robot, and now there's some good parts and pieces. The last thing I'm going to do, and once again, I'm going to make one more drawing. I thought we might use just the symmetrical drawing to create a quick star. You can already see those drawings that I just made. Now they're hovering down in my recent files, which is perfect. And I'm going to use one more little drawing. Click on that drawing button one more time. And I'm going to flip symmetry on. So once again, let's see, brush, symmetry, and I'm going to go for kind of a radial symmetry here because I want to make a star. And now the making a star is going to be totally easy. Let's select a bright color. Let's select a nice brush for that. I think I'll go wobbly line, and I'll just make it really big. And here I'm just going to pull in these colors once again. And we have, oops, we have symmetry set, so it's just automatically starts making really interesting shapes. Get some more colors. Here we go.
And we have one of our Adobe Creative Educator innovators actually called out just the symmetry tool. They said the symmetry option is pretty amazing. It's made life easier for them and is great for mandalas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. What a great idea to use the symmetry tool for that.
So that's a nice star. I know it looks kind of light here, but when we put it on a dark blue space background, it will have have a whole different energy. So now I'm going to go back into our the presentation that I have. So this is something that's been just built in Adobe Presentations. In 1 second, let's go and click that down. Let's see my pages and scroll down to this nice blank page. Boom. And okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into click your stuff. So what I want to do is bring all those parts and pieces onto the canvas. Let's start with a robot. So there's a robot. And since I put him on a transparent background, you see that he shows up here and just see the drawing and nothing
Ah,
else around it.
yep.
And I have a bunch of parts and pieces that I've made before that I'm just gonna, 1 second, grab some of those and bring those in. Actually, this is a planet that I made last time, and I'm just gonna take it. 1 second.
I'm seeing the
Okay.
vision here. Students can start like really building their own worlds,
Yeah,
just
so
one illustration at a time.
there's a robot. He's a little bit lonely. I'm gonna bring in kind of an Earth-like planet, tuck that into the corner over there. Let's get some more planets in here. There's some more kind of shapes. There's stuff. There's our star, and maybe that's where our robot is going towards. There's our kind of Saturn-like planet with the rings. There's the other green planet that we drew really quickly. And with all these things, like, you want to set up a nice composition, give everything a little bit of space, but you can really play with scale.
Nice. Yeah.
And maybe I'm gonna rotate that a little bit. I'm just gonna grab a couple more things from one more screen. I've got a little bit of a library. When I'm making animations, I often have like a little bit of goodies then the back. So I'm gonna just grab a couple more things. These are things I've drawn before. I have a UFO, a little bit of a satellite, this little rocket ship, and some sparkly stars. I'm gonna grab those, just cut them, and then we're gonna go back to our main illustration where I'm putting all these things together and put them into place. So here's all these parts and pieces. So let's call that one a little cluster of stars. I have a rocket ship. I've got a UFO. I have a little satellite. Once again, don't want to have everything be too crowded, but I'm kind of like moving all these elements around. The front and center is my little robot hero. But then these are some other parts and pieces. And what's really fun, what I love about like designing and drawing and Express the most is these easy animation features. I think the UFO will be the farthest out. Maybe the satellite's closest to Earth. Okay. So get things into kind of a rough place, but then gets really fun is like, let's take these things and let's
Mhm.
start giving them a little bit of animation. So once you click on an object, you see these three options. There's edit, there's effects, and there's animation. Tap on animation. And now here's these same fantastic animation presets. We have these in both Fresco and Express, and the ones in Fresco are based on Express. And I'm gonna just pick some basic animation effects. So I picked loop mode. There's three types. You can have things either animate in, or you can have them do looping animations or animate out. I'm choosing loop, and then I'm choosing to bob. So now we have one robot that is bobbing. And if I hit play on this, I'll see that bobbing robot. And now it's kind of going piece by piece and just deciding what you want to do with the rest of the things. Here we have this big planet Earth in the corner. I think what I want to have happen with that is maybe just have it sort of, you can have things breathe a little bit. A little strange for a planet, kind of getting bigger, getting smaller, but or we could have it zoom in. So it's kind of a one-way zoom, and you have that sense of that Earth just getting bigger and bigger
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah. Or like you're just getting closer to it and coming back out.
And then
I
you can
liked how
also,
you get the floating effect too with the bobbing
yeah,
animation.
it definitely, I mean, that's one of my favorites,
Hmm.
admittedly. Maybe you could make one of these planets feel a little bit, or you can have it spin, kind of a rough
Oh,
orbit for
yep.
Saturn there.
Wouldn't
Maybe
want to
that's
be on Saturn right now doing that, but
a bit better for the satellite.
there
Um,
we go. Yeah.
I'm gonna make this little cluster of stars. I think I'm gonna make that just blink. Blinks, blinks, you can guess what blink does. It blinks. Flicker is another effect that I can do. Um, Flicker kind of comes in and out. And now, like when you start seeing these things together, all these begin to kind of make a really complex composition. And it's like where all these started with just scribbles. They're kind of roughly drawn. We did them all in Express Draw. And then what you can do is just start slowly, slowly. Maybe this one will go yo-yo, another very eccentric planet. Watch out, stay away from that one. I'll maybe make this to just be another bobbing one. And then I'm gonna have one thing come out or just come across the whole scene. I'm gonna select my little alien ship and have that animate in. So I'm gonna have it animate in from kind of like floats into space. It both appears
Yep.
and then kind of gets real. You could have it, or you can have it bungee in. That's kind of fun.
That's
So I'm gonna,
very clever for an alien spaceship. It's
yeah.
just showing up.
So you can either have you can have things animate in, you can have them
Hmm.
animate out, you can have them do these kind of looping animations. And then once again, it's just fun to play with these. I think the only thing that
Look
is
at that.
not doing something right now is got to think of something for the star. So here's a star. We'll maybe make that star. Any requests? Should it spin? Should it animate
Oh,
in?
do we have any requests for what we want the animation to be for our star? Could you read out some of those options? I know that they can
We
be a
can
little
have it,
small on a.
we can have it drift in, drop in. It could spin. It could kind of shake. It can blur. Should we try blur?
Let's try blur. Yeah,
So
let's
that
try
just kind of
blur.
comes into focus. That's kind of interesting.
That's actually pretty cool. It's like it's an atmospheric movement there, just
Yeah.
coming in.
And so this is one of the things like, of course it's fun to play in the drawing editor and draw pictures and kind of like let yourself imagine whatever you want. But then like you can really start playing with animation And these could be used for storyboards. They could be used to kind of like to animate or illustrate an idea. This just really helps bring drawings to life. So I love working back and forth between Express Draw and Animation Editor.
Yeah, we have another one of our ace innovators who co-signed on that in the chat saying he loves bringing it to the next level with the animations and how awesome this is. Thank you, Michael Wesley from Virginia Beach for that. And Matt, it's really cool bringing these elements into the editor because, like you said, we've auto saved our illustrations into the Your Stuff folder. So when you are in the editor on that far left side, you can click on Your Stuff folder and start bringing in all of your creations. And what I've loved that you've done here, which is something that I'm one of the many things I'm going to take back from your session today, is creating a bank of my
Yes.
illustrations. Because now that, like, just seeing that, I have this big Your Stuff folder and it's got all of these pieces. But when you put them together like that, you actually feel like I'm developing a collection here. And it triggers your imagination even more for what you can do and what you can create with all of these pieces that you've put together. Sometimes it's hard to see all of the possibilities when you're just working, just in the individual elements. But when you had that slide and you just kind of put all of your illustrations there, that was really powerful to see. Like, yeah, you can actually absolutely develop your own collection, and that's
Yeah.
very empowering.
And each one of these, like, and that just made me think, you asked, like, what is my favorite thing about digital drawing? It's
Mhm.
actually this. You can create these like kind of more complex compositions. You don't have to do everything in one picture. Like if any of you, and I went to art school, I have kind of like a fine arts background too. Like you paint that painting, it's one solid sort of mass of paint. There's only one layer on that thing.
Yeah.
I think here you can really begin to think of these drawings, each one as its own sort of cutout or a puppet, and really start making your bigger composition with all these different pieces coming together.
That's fantastic, Matt. Thank you for showing that. And as we've got about 9 minutes remaining on our live stream today, I would just love to call out that there's a lot that comes to mind from what we imagine, especially as we take risks in our illustration when we go into Adobe Express. Like you started just with like, let's explore what's in here. Let's explore these brushes and features. And I'm curious for you, what brings your imagination to life? Like, what is something that, like, when you start to think about it, is it a lived experience? Is it something that you're reading, something that you're watching? What typically inspires you as you start to create?
What inspires me as I start to create? Actually, one of the things that inspires me is before I start to create. I live close to this big park that has tons and tons of rocks on it. And rocks and flowers and nature. There's like little lizards, there's birds, there's all this stuff back there. And one thing that I do anytime I'm walking my dogs, and I'll show you a picture of those in just a moment, but I go around and I'm looking at the plants around me. I'm looking at all the flowers. I'm looking at their form. I look at nature, and then I kind of like store all those thoughts in my head, and I bring them back and I try and draw them. So I think the reason why I got picked to draw a book about rocks is that I really love drawing rocks. But yeah, and so I often find myself just starting with doing something really kind of rough like this and really playing with just blobs of color. Now I'm using the eraser to clean it up and make it a little bit crisp. So one thing that I guess that I really love about drawing on the computer is that sense of I can shape it, I can change it. What I start with doesn't have to be what I finish with. And you can really kind of like have that sort of, it's more like I'm sculpting sometimes, it feels like, um, or, or, or really playing. And so like I'll just play with these shapes. And then once I have a kind of interesting background like this rock, then I might think about something that could be on that rock. So like, I don't know, like a really interesting beetle or something like that. And by the way, if anyone wants to see any types of bugs, beetles, or flowers, toss it in the chat. And the other way that I draw personally is I like drawing just really basic shapes and then doing interesting things on top of those. So let's draw like a red beetle. Oops, meant it to be red. Use the eyedropper, pick that red that I just had, fill it in. But I start kind of drawing for me is basically building up compositions bit by bit, starting with something that is that's interesting to me. One second. Red, boom. Okay. And then usually with these kind of geometric shapes, and then really beginning to kind of brush over them and fill them in. But I think I find nature and just sort of walking is sort of the most inspiring thing. And then I spend a lot of doodle time, whether I'm in meetings or wherever I'm on my sketchbook, or like trying to kind of like doodle out ideas and all this sort of, and it's usually the things that I think about when I've gone on sort of big walks.
I love that. Just tapping into our environmental inspirations, what we're seeing in the world around us. Do you feel like creativity helps us better understand the world?
Absolutely. And, some of the most inspiring, I have two kids, and some of their favorite drawings that I have are the ones that they've done in science classes, where they've been asked to, one of my favorite assignments from my son was he was asked to design a life form from a different planet and draw it. And he just did a really simple
Cool
drawing. And
project.
that's like using drawing, um, of course, it's fun to draw as like to create like art, but I think the more interesting aspect of drawing is using it to capture ideas and to
Mhm.
imagine. And that's stuff that anyone can do. And some of the tools that we tried to build into this, we wanted to make this so that anyone can feel like they can kind of jump in here and draw. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
So the doodling, that's perfect for that, right? Capturing your ideas because they can come at any time. Sometimes you just need to put them down to start developing them even more.
100%. I totally agree with you.
Well,
So
we have,
oh, sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Matt.
No, no, you go.
We've got about 4 minutes remaining, and we do have a request. If
Yes.
you could draw an axolotl, I still don't know if I'm pronouncing an axolotl
Okay.
correctly. We have
Here,
a major fan of axolotls in the
okay.
chat.
Here we go.
Here
I'll
we
do my
go.
best. I'm going to pick a background color. I know that if that's a type of salamander with a really frilly neck, we're going to start with like blue. And I think that they're kind of pinkish. Let's go with one for that. And
I think they're a little pinkish
a
too.
little pinkish. So
Yeah.
we'll
Shall
start
let
there.
us know. This is all you.
So I think if I'm drawing something like this, I'm always going to start with giving it a slightly oversized head just for fun.
Without trying to offend the axolotls, I think they always have an oversized head, no?
Yes, they do. They have, and then, so there's the axolotl's body, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. Okay, there's one arm. Someone should tell me how many fingers an axolotl has, or do they have fingers? It might just be like one big webbed thing, but we'll do our best. There's a
We
foot.
we will imagine it as best we can. And Shell has just let folks know in the chat that you also share really great examples of your sketch notes on your LinkedIn. So we could, oh, and she confirmed that you are drawing this correctly. So the axolotl is looking axolotly.
Is it feeling like a, now
It's
we know
feeling
that,
real.
I know that their eyes are actually pretty small little dots, but I want to give our axolotl a little bit more character here. So, and let's give him him, her, or it, some nice purple eyes. And they have very kind of broad mouths. So I'm going to select the pink of the axolotl, and then I'm going to go to like a slightly darker shade. And let's give him a little, him, her, or axolotl a little smile.
Oh, this is very good. I would have been stumped a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
practice.
Did I do good at Pictionary today? I hope I
I
did.
think you did. I think you're doing a great job at Pictionary. You're getting some affirmations in the chat.
And now, like, I'm gonna go back in and just pick a different tone that's a little bit related to the first, and maybe I'll go in and pick another favorite brush, go back to this wobbly line, and I'll just give it some more details. So it's like a slightly darker. I know that these probably have some nice frills, but
That looks so good. Michael Clay is saying it's looking good. Shell confirmed 100% they have giant heads and giant feet. And we've got less than a minute to go. And so if you have one last question in the chat, you can drop it in the chat. If we're not able to answer it on the live stream, we will do our best to get back to you. But don't forget that Adobe holds these live streams every week. And so because it is a very special time, join us on May 8th to celebrate Adobe Creative Educators for Teacher Appreciation Week. That will be with Claudio Zavala Jr. and Martin Cisneros. And you don't want to miss that. For more information, you can go to adobe.ly/Adobe Live EDU. Thank you so, so much for joining us today, Matt. You have been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so, so much for joining us and for all of these amazing tips and inspiration to just get in there and create. Any last words?
No, thank you so much. And everyone, just draw all the time. Make those mistakes. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, everybody.